Welcome, everyone, to the Tethys Shipyards. I am Takeshi Yamato, the Yardmaster, joining our host, the Housecoat Gamer.
Yo.
This is going to be our last starship from the Utopia Planitia book, for a while, at least. The last one that has errors in both in the date and maybe the lore, which we will be fixing. This is the Akira-Class.
I don't think she needs any introduction. I mean,
No.
it's the Akira.
Yeah. Now, book stats. Well, book info. Launch year 2368. Primary shipyards in Antares Shipyards, Antares, Utopia Planitia, Tranquility Base Shipyards at Luna. Overview. In the aftermath of the Battle of Wolf 359, Starfleet saw the need for a heavily armed and combat-capable starship that could perform patrol assignments and maintain a constant presence in a sector of space to provide support or direct action in combat assignments, but still able to contribute to the primary goal of Starfleet in exploration and discovery. The design that the Advanced Starship Design Bureau chose for this project was one that had been first proposed in the mid-23rd century, but technological limitations prevented its proper construction until then. When updated with the latest technologies, the new USS Akira was so successful in its initial patrols that Starfleet immediately ordered the class into wide production. Capabilities. Akira-Class starships are considered cruisers by Starfleet Command, but unlike other cruisers in service, the Akira doesn't utilize a secondary hull. The vessel is designed to present the smallest sensor profile possible to augment the small surface area for its defensive shields. The highly sloped surfaces on the outer hull were also augmented with ablative duranium armor plating, providing additional protection to CNC systems and power distribution nodes. The Akira wasn't only designed with defensive measures in mind. The vessel contained more firepower for a ship of its displacement than any other vessel in service. The saucer of the vessel was equipped with extensive Class 12 phaser arrays capable of covering every angle of attack. The ship's weapons pod, located between its large pontoons that were attached to the saucer and also mounted the vessel's warp nacelles, contained the same phaser arrays and forward and aft firing photon torpedo systems. These same torpedo launchers were also serviced by magazines containing the vessel's probe stores to augment the vessel when it was conducting survey and exploration assignments. The vessel's quantum torpedo systems were dedicated solely to the new technology and were not serviced by the same probe magazines. The vessel was also designed with spacious shuttle bay flight decks and maintenance areas, allowing for the vessel to deploy runabouts, fighters, or shuttlecraft in a variety of mission profiles. Refits and variants. The 2378 refit program for the Akira-Class involved installation of binaural computer pathways to augment its isolinear core. Future refits currently being considered include the installation of further sensor networks tied directly into the torpedo launch and control systems, as well as duranium armor to improve survivability of the class after shields have been depleted. In 2380, a single variant began construction at Utopia Planitia Fleet Yards called the Armitage Block. This variant replaces much of the extra shuttlecraft and runabout base space with extra sensor pallets and dedicated processing cores for the vessel's fire control systems. Suggested mission profiles are tactical operations, battle cruiser, and crisis and emergency response. Naming conventions. Akira-Class vessels are often named after famous and fictional warriors or fighting vessels, ones that stood up to impossible odds. Thunderchild, Gawain, and Argo are some examples. Space frame stats, descriptor trait, Federation starship. Systems values are comms 9, computers 9, engines 9, sensors 9, structure 10, weapons 11. Department modifiers are 2 points in security and 1 point in medicine. It's a scale 5 starship. It has phaser arrays, quantum torpedoes, and a strength 4 tractor beam. And for talents, it has a blade of armor, extensive shuttle bays, and a rapid fire torpedo launcher. Alright, Ron, take it away.
Before we even touch on that, we have to touch on some new boats, which is kind of why I've been showcasing the Matsumoto-Class so much.
Shall I make a dock for the Matsumoto?
Not yet.
Okay.
We have to touch on it because it's part of the lore, it's part of the ship. But boat stats can wait. After all, we do need to speed this along.
Yep.
The genesis of the Akira-Class actually starts back in the 2280s, with the introduction of the Matsumoto-Class very limited production torpedo cruiser. Though some vessels of the class were used as carriers for Raven and Wraith class fighters. The Matsumoto performed sterlingly in this role, though thanks to the Kittimer Accords and the naval limitations therein, the class was quickly mothballed. The only vessel of the class, one of the few vessels of the class to survive, the USS Matsumoto herself, was quickly and unceremoniously dumped at the Fleet Museum at 8th and Prime. But she was not forgotten, as Andorian shipwrights were looking at the history of the history and going, perhaps we can do something with this. And in the late 2350s, created 2 starships, USS Akira, NX-62497, and USS Canada, or Canada, it's spelt with a K. NX-2...
62498.
Thank you. Sorry. I'm a little tired.
Yeah.
The ships were used mostly for testing purposes, but they did prove to be rather useful, and thus entered very limited production. Most of their frames were actually mass-produced, but due to budget limitations and the political insistence on downscaling Starfleet as much as possible, hence the introduction of ships like the Galaxy-Class, most of the ships, while technically commissioned and given registry codes, were not put into service. In fact, the USS Akira was actually mothballed, while the USS Canada was put in the Sol system. Which brings us to stardate 44002.1.
Wolf 359.
Ironically enough, the Canada actually did some damage to the cube, far more than most of her counterparts, due to the simple reason that she was far more combat-focused than most of her half-siblings. After all, she was designed mostly to deal with Cardassian and extant Klingon designs, and as a replacement for the Excelsior class, which just doesn't want to die.
Yeah.
That said, the Canada, just like the rest of the ships at Wolf 359, was slaughtered with the exception of the USS Endeavour. Not the Hood.
The Hood was not there.
The Hood would have gotten slaughtered. And seeing as the Hood shows up during the Dominion War...
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a fact very few people like to realize. Anywho, the class would be put into production, and utilizing a bit of a quirk. The ship, mostly designed to, well, perform the same jobs as the Excelsior, also required a similar shuttle complement. This required a uniquely designed warp core and a through-deck shuttle bay.
There's the front.
This would actually lend itself quite usefully to a newly reasserting role: the revival of fighters and carriers. Something not seen since the General War. Retrofit Peregrine-class craft were quickly turned into fighters, and the Akira was redesignated as a heavy escort cruiser. Well, heavy escort carrier. Screw you, it's not a strike-wing carrier. Escort.
Yeah.
As such, the ship would perform its role superbly well, to the point of being a little too effective. Of course, the design did originate before Wolf 359. Despite this, though, it actually proved itself to be almost perfect for a post-Dominion War Starfleet. There was just one problem. It was about 30 years old at that point.
Yeah.
But Starfleet didn't want to get rid of their breadwinner. Oh, hell no. New designs were quickly generated, including designs derived from the Norway class, such as the Oslo, which only entered limited production, and most, if not all, were scrapped after testing began. The Steamrunner-inspired Zephyr, which, again, had more problems than benefits. But the most successful versions were the Thunderchild, named after the USS Thunderchild, the Armitage, a bulkier, far more combat-focused vessel, and finally, its ultimate successor, which isn't exactly accurate at the moment, give me a moment, the Akira-Class, which was introduced in 2400. And unfortunately was involved in the debacle that is Frontier Day.
Yeah.
Before anyone decides to make any comments on the matter, I would suggest you look at Memory Alpha and type in the words Akira-Class. Because guess what? It does show up there. Still, because the Akira was relatively new, and her hulls actually hadn't seen that much action before they were actually put into service, most were still around, which was an odd sight, seeing essentially the grandparents fighting alongside their grandchildren.
Yeah.
Still, after Frontier Day, the Akira-Class would finally start getting scaled down. The Iconian War would unfortunately put those ships back into service. It's like the universe just doesn't want them to go away.
Yeah. Alrighty, so let's do stats for the Akira. Let's modify the stats for the Akira. Then we should probably do the Matsumoto and the Alita, I suppose?
The Matsumoto can wait.
Okay.
Now the Akira was introduced a decade before Wolf 359, so I suppose it's going to have to go down a point.
Yeah, so we said 2358, so yeah, we're going to need to remove 1 point. Comms 9, computers 9, engines 9, sensors 9, structure 10, weapons 11.
I'd remove the weapons.
So weapons down to 10?
Yeah, that would be more or less akin to the Akira and the Canada as built.
Yep. After Wolf 359, you can always put that point back in.
No need to change that.
Yep. Department modifiers are pretty much the same. Security 2, Medicine 1. Scale 5. I had put... and I would replace quantum torpedoes with photon torpedoes and keep them replaced. If you want to add quantum torpedoes, use a tactical operations or warship mission profile and take expanded munitions.
Logi is life.
Yeah.
And quantum torpedoes are obscenely expensive to make. Photon
Yeah.
torpedoes, Voyager could build them.
Yeah.
Sure, they had to go mining, a subplot that the boys over at Paramount forgot to do.
Yep.
But
talents.
They could do it.
Yeah. For talents, ablative armor, extensive shell base, rapid fire torpedo launcher. I say those work.
I don't see any point in changing those up. The only real thing you needed to change was entry date.
Yep, and swapping out the photon torpedoes, the quantum torpedoes for something that would be more readily available, especially since with the new date, quantum torpedoes wouldn't have been around just yet.
Yes, those were introduced to the Defiant and Sovereign classes. With the Defiant getting the prototypes.
Yeah. Now, let's see. Shall we do the Alita?
I don't see any reason not to.
Alright. Alita-Class Starship. Make copy. Alright. Changing entered service date to 2400, I think you said?
Indeed. After all, there were not an insignificant number of these ships around during the Frontier Day flights.
Yep. Okay, so let's just bring it up to 60 points. So let's see. Well, 61 points for scale 5. So we've got 5 points to add. I'll put weapons back at 11.
Apparently there were 14 of them.
I
guess they didn't want to get rid of the Akira and just put their grandkids into the role.
Yeah. Putting engines up to 10 as well. So that leaves us 3 points. Comms 9, computers 9, engines 10, sensors 9, structure 10, weapons 11.
How do we capitalize on the ship's strengths?
Right. Comms 10?
It would need that for fighter deployment.
Yep, let's see. 10, 20, 30, 41, 50, 59. 2 points left.
More guns?
Weapons 12?
Yep.
Alright, 1 point left. Engines or structure?
Engines.
Engines 11. Okay, department modifiers. 2 points in Akira had 2 points in security, 1 point in medicine.
I'd say change those around. After all, fighters.
So, get rid of the point in medicine. Put it into command.
Yep.
Still 2 points in security.
How many photon torpedo launchers do you see?
Let me take a look. I see 6 in in the roll bar. And another 4 on the back of the roll bar. 2 on the back of the saucer. Are those 4 points in the front of the saucer above the deflector dish?
I think
Are
those,
those?
I think those are phaser cannons, but I think you get the point.
Yeah. Oh, there were 2 below the deflector. Yeah, those 2 red points. I think those are torpedo launchers.
Everything wants to it wants to kill you.
So yeah, so many. So yeah, 2 points in security. Let's
It
see.
wants to kill you.
Weapons are phaser arrays. I think we can put the quantum torpedoes back in instead of the photons.
Though it would still have photons, they were firing red flashy kaboom lights at Frontier Day, not blue.
Photon torpedoes. And probably phaser cannons too.
Yep. They're rather prominent ones.
Yep.
6 of them to be exact.
Yep, so phaser arrays, phaser cannons, photon torpedoes, quantum torpedoes, strength 4 tractor beam, and a blade of armor, extensive shell base, rapid fire torpedo launcher. Those don't need to be changed.
It has 8 forward torpedo launchers. Do you seriously think that needs to be changed?
No. And Federation Starship descriptor trait. I don't see any reason to change that or add anything.
Neither do I.
So that is the Akira and the Alita.
Matsumoto we will deal with on a later date.
Yep. And basically, apart from the Oslo and Zephyr, the Day 1 variants, every ship of this type is basically named after something, and the Thunderchild. But the Akira, the Alita, the Armitage, the Matsumoto, they're all named. Their names all relate into anime in some reason. The Akira.
Well, Akira.
Yeah.
The guys who. The people who made Star Trek The Next Generation, they loved it.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they spent a vacation there in Japan while it was going on.
Yep.
Or maybe an early dub.
Yeah. The Armitage.
Armitage 3. A kind of noir anime that takes place on Mars. Don't ask. I just work here.
Yeah. The Alita is named after Battle Angel Alita. And the Matsumoto is not named for an anime, but a guy who drew anime. Specifically, or who worked on anime. Specifically, this guy, Matsumoto, the Matsumoto class is named after a guy who did work on space battleship Yamato. Hence why... what?
Shoot me.
Yep.
I do not think very highly of that show.
Yep.
Regardless.
Yeah, regardless. We'll see you eventually for the Matsumoto vid.
For now, though, just remember, the Akira. It's a fan favorite. That's why it's legendary.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
And I will... Yeah.